Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult, video 201. Yeah, we've gone past 200. I am at least over time going to get to 250. It'll take a while, probably another year, because it's going to be more sporadic. But religion is for those who fear hell. Witchcraft is for those who have been there. A little bit of an antagonistic title, I'm sure, for some of my viewers, but just hear me out here. And by religion, I'm not talking about, oh, Christianity. I'm talking organized religion. You believe in Jesus, you can be very much spiritual and mystic. But if all you're doing is going to church and saying, yeah, I believe in God, I read the Bible sometimes, that's it. That's not really a spiritual adventure at all. That's just being a member within a religion. Most people in this world who are religious are not truly spiritual. Many of them aren't even theists. Some of these people, they did a study some years ago. And it seems that up to a quarter of priests within the Catholic Church, now this is not just limited to Catholicism, but within that context of polling, they talked to a bunch of priests. Up to a quarter of them might be atheistic. Fundamentally, they don't even believe in the Christian God. They're like, no, I don't really believe in, it's just basically be a good person. It's a good thing to do. It's part of, it's cultural. Some people, they become a Catholic or Muslim or whatever for cultural reasons. Sometimes for legal reasons, like you're in certain countries in the world, you have to be a member of a certain religion. They have essentially a state-sponsored religion. It's like if you're in Saudi Arabia and you're not a Muslim, you're basically not a citizen. I don't even know if it's actually allowed to be anything else. Like, I know you can't deconvert, you'll get killed. So sometimes people will join a religion for strictly pragmatic purposes. It's like if you look back at the burning times, how many of those people who would carry torches through the streets happily as part of a mob burning a witch, how many of those people didn't even believe in witchcraft or believe in any of those things, and they were just sort of part of the crowd because they didn't want themselves to get persecuted? Witchcraft, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Witchcraft, I believe, fundamentally is easiest if you've experienced trauma and had spiritual experiences that go beyond simply, I walked into a church. I prayed in a mosque. I prayed in a synagogue. I happen to be, I'm my parents' child. They're Christians, therefore I'm a Christian. My parents are Jews, therefore I'm a Jew. My parents are Hindus or whatever. That's all well and good. You're religious under those precepts. That doesn't make you spiritual. I would point out, by the way, if you believe in the effective nature of prayer, then you've conducted witchcraft. Yes, prayer is a form of magic. I've had this debate before with people, Christians and Muslims especially, and other groups. Prayer is an invocation. It's a request to a deity. What's the difference between what a shaman 5,000 years ago was doing or some Babylonian priest and what a priest does today is very scant. The only difference is evolution. I'll tell you, I've talked about this before. I think this was in Psychedelic Spirituality, I sort of fleshed this out. The basic premise. In the early stage, the shaman or priest or whatever commands the deity or commands the spirits or whatever to help them in battle, to give them, relieve this famine, bring the rains so that our crops may grow, stop the rains, it's getting floody here, something like that. The problem is if you have a religious order, a spiritual order, where you're attempting to command a deity or spirits and nothing happens, is that you can only make the same excuse so many times. Oh, well, we got to sacrifice more people. The gods are displeased. It's his fault or something. Eventually, people turned on the ineffective priesthoods because what happened is when cultures started encountering one another, some cultures tended to be more effective than others. Now, fundamentally, it's just nature, or it's their technology at the time, their prowess in military technology, whatever, helps them in battle or helps them in farming or whatever. They know how to rotate crops. They tend to do better than their monocultural grain-based neighbor or something. But people looked at that differentiation and would slaughter their priesthood and convert. Priests and shaman and all these groups eventually realized it was better to request the intercession of a deity, to request that the spirits help you. That way you had plausible deniability. If they didn't help, you could always make the same excuse. Well, the reason we lost the battle, it's not my fault. I asked the spirits, I did the rituals and everything. We offered the bowl of oxen blood. What happened? You lost. Why did you lose? Think, Erg, what did you do the days... Oh, you weren't chaste enough. You had sex with your wife. Well, you're no longer the commander now. Now Egru over there will be commander because, he's got no dick, so he can't get off. Basically, this is what happened. Religion, though, is very much prescribed. What I would say witchcraft is it reverses course back to that original state. Witchcraft is still very much command-based, although it doesn't have to be, in some cases, in many paths. It's very much command-based. It's also anecdotal. It's very personalized. Religion is cookie-cutter. What religion does is says there is a certain group of laws and you must follow them. It doesn't matter male or female, black or white, young or old. These are certain timeless commands that this God or this group of spirits commands you to live with. What witchcraft says is, no, that's not actually true. There is malleability there. Now, there are certain sets of philosophical rules that different groups within witchcraft would stress. That doesn't mean that rules weren't made to be broken, however, in some cases. For instance, I've heard from someone who was a tantric practitioner, the idea of ritualistically breaking your vows once in a while, the idea of being an ascetic, like not eating meat, taking certain vows. You won't eat meat, you won't have sex, you won't drink, or smoke or whatever, but then like once a year or something you break that vow in order to show that you're still a human being, still an individual, you're capable of making that decision. See, religion stresses you can't do that. Religion says no, if you break the vow at all, it's all bets are off as to your salvation or whatever. You'll be punished in some way. You go to hell, you go to purgatory, God will give you leprosy or whatever happens to happen. But in witchcraft, it's not necessarily that way. You could say, well, I'm going to go like a year without drinking. But then at the end of that, I need to have like a total drunken orgy because I need to show that I'm still, I have chosen that vow. And I'll return to it thereafter, but I've got to be able to still make the decision to break it. Otherwise, I'm just as much a slave. I'm not a slave to the alcohol, I'm a slave to the aversion from it for spiritual reasons. I'm being controlled by external entities. Witchcraft is more personable. Witchcraft also, it's like I've said to people, I've had, and I've described some of them, spiritual experiences in my life that cannot be quantified, in my opinion, by science. They cannot be quantified, in my opinion, through any mainstream religion. I don't ask that others follow my path or believe as I do or look for those experiences or even believe that I had them. It's an anecdote that has import only to me. In religion, you would take that and extrapolate that to be important for other people. It wouldn't be so much, hey, you know, I saw a demon. It would be, I saw a demon and therefore you need to be worried because there are demons all around you. I know what I saw and we're going to make a religion out of it and try to stave them off because there's this one other God here that'll protect us from the demons. Give him corn once a year or slay the fatted calf and he'll keep you from being possessed. What a witch would say is, I saw this, you can believe it or not, doesn't matter to you, you didn't see it. If you took part in that, maybe, within a ritual context or whatever, it could have importance. Otherwise, who cares? It's like, for instance, I've used this story repeatedly. I saw a ghost once, or what would generally be classed as one. I don't believe in disembodied spirits walking the earth intelligently. I look at it as just a remnant energy or whatever. I did see it. I was aware, I was sober, I was awake. I know what I saw. But asking other people to believe me makes no sense. They weren't physically there. I was alone at the time. They didn't see it, therefore they have no reason. Logically speaking, it's a significant claim. It's a claim that you saw something that would generally be termed a spirit or whatever, or a demon, or fucking some other odd force that doesn't appear in general scientific literature in the mainstream sense. That's a pretty high-level claim. I should be able to supply pretty high-level evidence. But unless they see such a thing for themselves, I can't do that. Therefore, the person who's in witchcraft doesn't ask other people to give that any import in their lives. The religious person, though, does. I've spoken with religious people before, and they're like, well, I saw an angel, yes, I saw the departed, they told me to praise Jesus. I saw Jesus when I, was brain dead once. And they get mad at you if you disbelieve them. They're like, oh, how can you say that? You blasphemer, heretic, you hate the Lord or whatever. It's like you'll never find someone who's in the authentic occult who will react that way. They'll say, oh yeah, I raised Lucifer the other night. And you're like, oh really? You got any proof of that? They're like, no. They're not going to care. Therein lies, it's a big psychological difference. And I think that witchcraft typically appeals to those who are more Luciferian in the independent sense. They're more self-led, independent, whatever, or who have suffered trauma. That is, they've seen weird and frightening things. They've already been so frightened and so confused that really the idea of hell doesn't appeal to them. The idea of hell, it's like, oh, I already pretty much saw that. The idea of suffering, the idea of being punished, who cares? It's essentially, they've decided to relegate their own suffering to the subjective and or disbelieve in your tale entirely because it's not an anecdote. They haven't experienced it. Or they've experienced something that's a counterpart to it. They describe it differently, understand it because they've lived through it. Just like my overdose. I saw all sorts of crazy shit, and it was very painful and unpleasant at times. I think that helps to inform my spiritual views. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I would say generally, religion is for those who are fearful. But if you've already lived through that fear, you've already been cleansed or purified, you could say, by it. Or if you're so independent you just don't fucking care about these things, witchcraft is probably more appealing. Some degree of paganism, witchcraft, things of that nature, as opposed to sitting there worrying about being sent to hell by a malevolent deity all your life. That's about all. Peace out.